For instance, I feel a lyric can be a lament, can be an exclamation of joy, or a lyric can tell the sum and substance of a man's life.
Oh yeah, that's right. Good old, oh Frankie, Frank baby,
Fairy tales
yes,
can come true.
they
It
can
can
happen
happen
to you.
if you're young
I
and
don't Scooby-Doo, don't want to get a whatever you call it, a write-up. Right. Well, today I thought I might sing a song when I wrote a long time ago. Blah blah blue, blah blah blue. But not just yet. Got to start on with my lecture. My lecture here about everything that is happening to me. Maybe because I'm not young at heart. Or maybe I'm too young at heart. I just woke up today, and I mean, this has been happening for the last few days, with this huge, huge, absurd sense of being out of place, being so different than the average bear. Like, the average person can speak rationally about shit. The average person has normal stories to tell. The regular political person has angles of argumentation about shit that they can speak rationally about. I can't. I was just coming to the conclusion that there's no way that I fit in on the normal rails of things, and because of that, and I don't know. I mean, I seriously, I wonder. I mean, more people are off of YouTube and off of direct exposure on social media than are on it, and so there's got to be plenty of people that are off the rails, but I don't know. I don't know how many people are like me in the world. And the thing is, I don't necessarily think there are, I got to get along with everyone as being so incredibly different from one another, because everybody is so incredibly different from one another. That is true. I think some people are just closer to regular, I don't know, behavior or outlook or practices than I am, and I don't know. Gets me weirded. Gets me weirded thinking about it, because I don't know. So there's that. Yeah. Hey, what? We're gonna sit here and listen to this guy talk about how fucked up shit is all the time? No, we're certainly not gonna do that. And is this a confessional? Is this a blame story? No, not this. Not this video. I'm not here to cast shade on anyone or give shit, toss shit. This one was just like, I don't know what to make of anything, so I might as well make what I can make out of things, which is make my Marley picture. But as far as making sense of the world now is a madhouse, and if you guys comment, by the way, and I see it, I'll try to respond. But it's a goddamn madhouse, and I was happy that on my most recent 2 videos, I had some people from the dawning, budding age of the YouTubes comment, and it made me feel that z-axis of time running through things, and kind of that sense of solidity of meaning that that people that have followed you for years can at least, they can at least appear to be. I don't know. I mean, you get an idea of how people are, and things are extraordinary sometimes in terms of the length and duration of time that you get to know people. And anyway, not certain what I'm summing of anything. My roommate just took off. But anyway, so we're in love on a parallel planet. Everything's exactly the same. Boo, 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 boo. Shit, now I'll forget my own lyrics. Everything's the same, except on my parallel planet. The taillights are blue, all blue, all blue. We can't sing a thing with our impossible dream. Now I'm just gonna steal Sinatra there. Anyway, so I guess I don't actually have a song to sing for you because I don't remember the lyrics. I don't. I'm gonna have to read my own damn lyrics. But I woke up today with just this existential despair that I haven't felt in a long, long time, and a lot of it has to do with the fact, well, with a few facts, right? Like I'm not living by my historic code anymore. I'm too desperate to do something else, to get out of my situation. Like I'm I have to go with the flow of where, destiny takes me. But boy, it's really upsetting at how like meager the movements are. Right? There's not enough money, there's not enough movement, and quite frankly, I have a lawsuit against someone else, and I have a lawsuit against me now that I've got to deal with. And it's, well, I don't know. Yep, I have misdemeanor charges. Because I didn't obey the request of a police officer who was reenacting something that he had already performed, and I denied his reenactment, and it cost me, and it'll still continue to cost me, and I'm not liable to win my particular case, and that is also disconcerting. But I'll find out tomorrow. I'll find out what exactly is being levied against me. So, all right. Well, we had 4 viewers. I'm down to 3 because hey, like what's the point of listening to this? Is if I have some sort of amazing insight, right? But it is incredible to go online and just see how, well, kind of like, back in the day of YouTube, things were, it was more wild and people were more expressive and daring and doing like off the wall bits and glips of things. And now it's presentation oriented politics. And I don't know what to make of that, but listening to Frank Sinatra made me think, hey, I have to do it my way. Right? Can't do it anyone else's way. I shouldn't let anyone else try to budge my way of being. And yet I myself am upset at my way of being. Like I want I still want more, which is also part of my way of being. And it's greedy, but it's not. Um, I don't know. It's not absurd to have some sort of desire towards capital gain. I have this feeling like it's it's a poor attempt on the soul, and yet my material relationships, are, they wax and wane, often based on my confidence, and my confidence is often based on what my current input is, right? And then a lot of my financial input is not based on going to labor, a work a day, and then I run into ethical problems because it's like this is it. This is the big show. You get one chance, you get your show here on the planet, and you gotta put on a show. You gotta do something fun and different and unique, and that amazes others. There's got to be some sense of nobility, right? So I was really lamenting the fact that I I had finished this film, or this guy finished this film on me, and then it was upsetting um, because I was already in a bad place in life, right? So he's recording me at one of my worst segments of life, and then I ask him to, in a way, pose me or choose the scenes or put together the documentary so that it dunks me, like it in a way doesn't make me look so great, right? And anyway, but all of that being said, so, well, not just that being said, but that fact alone, it's stained. I don't know. Like, my whole life it feels like I kind of came to this conclusion, right? Like after shit really went south way when, way long ago, and put me on a whole different trajectory. Then there were, elements in life where the possibilities could have blossomed into just, a fabulously feathery, beautiful existence. And I think most people catch flight when it's offered to them. They don't reject it and toss it, right? But I was one of those that tossed, just cast my shit to the curb. And so I'm just, obviously it's not a healthy move. You want to run with the good things. You don't want to spit in the face of the rare gifts that emerge in life. But it also, in terms of parallel planets, had me thinking about the idea of not just leaping off a roof towards a sense of internal trust, a belief in something other, but it was like the perfect motif for believing. Like, it was the perfect occasion: jumping off a roof, landing, going through this horror show, right? And this denial of gravity, if you will, that led me to, like like sense that either this world had shifted so dramatically because my life had shifted so dramatically, and to then make a disjunct at that point and assume that I was in fact on a parallel planet, like that that my jump was, consistent about the same time that the whole Mandela effect thing was trending, and it made me think, huh? Well, I can't chalk up, my memory discrepancies um, to just nothing, and yet at the same time, I don't know how to sum anything either in that regard. But yeah, as far, let's see. So, oh, all right. Oh, so plan on putting a big blunt or a doobie coming out of his hand there, even though he's like on stage. Figured that was appropriate. But so anyway, I just I get to these points of like this sense of the summation of my existence and how you know it, how I was falling, and it was probably cued in by talking to my niece who was talking about, yeah, life's kind of meaningless, everything's kind of a nihilism, and that by itself was, it was disconcerting to hear because I don't want somebody at such a young age to fall into a sense of meaninglessness, because it's shit can be difficult for people. But here I am, an overgrown kid, an adult, I guess is what you call an overgrown kid, and everyone's got their shit, their problems, obviously, but some people I think they're just living really joyous, and if not joyous, then noble lives, or something that echoes a type of a noble life. And then you get a lot of people that believe they're living a noble life, and on the surface it is, but then they don't take the risks that they wish that they would have taken. And I'm fully aware that there's more risks in life to take. I mean, I'm not dead yet, but there's always this overwhelming sense that I'm just doing stuff wrong, and then that questions how well accorded my life is to other people who I see online mostly, that are posturing themselves in a manner that is, it gains traction. It's more popular, and so the whole idea of you have to respect other minds. You don't just want to be some you know farting bonobo out in the woods casting shit, calling yourself a human. I mean, maybe you do, right? There's homeless people that are living like I would imagine some crazy people would be out in the woods. And in California it was novel. In LA, in Venice Beach at one time, there was a novelness to knowing those folks. But now, trying to actually think like, okay, life is moving in a whole different fashion at a different clip, speed, and there's no time to fuck around. And then, but it's so odd that really hits home when I'm facing outside restraints, legal restraints, and I don't know, cans being kicked down the road, and so forth. God, and I think I have too much dairy in my diet because I keep going clearing my throat. And then anyway, so a whole other thing is that it's odd trying to figure out, not figure out, figure out again what I'm doing with my like how long am I going to continue to kick the art horse? You know what I mean? Kick it around, like it's there's more there's more art produced than there are buyers to buy art, and if you're not in a good market or you don't have good connections, then it's obviously not necessarily like Instagram isn't necessarily actually the best way to trend with pieces. And so I guess all I'm saying is I'm in a little bit of a rut in terms of transportation, and so I'm in a little bit of in a rut as far as going out to the public to where I sell my goods. And it can happen to you if you piss off a cop. It can happen to you if the legal system's bought and sold, and you don't know what to do. Skibbly-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. And anyway, so I was thinking about going back to Cali, going back to Cali because the state of Utah is going to take a huge bite out of my ass for about a year and a half, it looks like. And so anyway, I'm thinking about that. Planning on going to Vegas here in a couple of weeks to scout around. I might just move to Vegas. Tired of wintering in these snowy states. Greatest snow on earth, Utah, folks. The greatest snow on earth. By the way, thanks to whoever's watching, and thanks to whoever thinks that they can handle hanging out with me, because this might be just a rambling, you hear, you see, sort of non-documentary interaction with Bob Marley painting. And anyway, so the thing is, I also have had to come to grips, right, with the fact that I haven't been the most noble creature on the planet, and and yet there's got to be some self-love. The other thing I've come to grips with, right, over the most recent years, and a lot of you guys listening to this might not agree with it, but even Christopher Michael Langan, this my highest IQ guy, has something that I was relating to upon reading his paper, that Wittgenstein had said also something to the effect is, like words and meaning in life are all equated to one another. Of course, I'm missing his triad, so that's not exactly what he said, but it's something like that. And all I was saying is that even when I'm down now, right, or I get into these flumpy modes, because something feels supernatural around me, not just feels it, but it's like the universe, at one point you're in the universe and it's mundane, and then you're attacking your life, and then your life starts hunting you down, and then you become subject of it, at least in my mythic, my wild, crazy myth, my J.R.R. Tolkien or J.R.R. Rawlings myth, or whatever. It's mine, and but the thing is about, and some people will never traverse into this mode or consider the paradigm of their world to be functioning this way, but the world seems to envelope me and kind of shore up, not just like a sense of clairvoyance, right? Like something's coming around the corner, but it actually seemingly is shoring up meaningful things that help me get through the moment, right? And so there was this McFadden song, you know, don't worry, be happy now. Don't worry, be happy. Scooby-Doo. Don't worry. Be happy now. Don't worry, be happy. I just had to wait. When my roommate comes out and he hears me rambling to myself, he probably thinks it's an odd thing. Anyway, I'm picking at the piece. So I'm not even feeling good about how I'm stroking this painting. But okay, so what's my point in Christopher Michael Langan is that he talked about this manifold that kind of echoes your thoughts and echoes your being, right? And when I was out to eat at my sister-in-law's birthday party, and my niece started speaking about nihilism, and she's just a young pup, she's in her teens, and it made me get worried just to think that she's pondering the term, the thoughts of meaninglessness, which I'm not going to say I didn't have thoughts of meaninglessness. But for the most part, I at that age, I had them kept at bay. I guess I was more focused on, getting stuff done than like a greater overarching thesis of the world. But now that the internet's opened up to young and old, I just hope that the powers that be, so to speak, almost like to say, hey, we're not waiting for AI. AI is already here, right? And so where minds go are where the soul travels, so to speak. And the hope, my thoughts are that the hope is that that whatever the cosmic forces are, favor a an absenting of data and information that would defunct her sense of solidity that only older people that go through existential drifts and crises kind of suffer. And I shouldn't say only adults, but for some reason, something about youth and its higher metabolisms have like what comes along with those are often an immediate sense of bodily strength. Just the metabolism alone, I think, saves people that when they reach a certain older age, if they haven't put their demons at bay, so to speak, then they can be oh man, it's French coffee, not even French cream. Here, I'd let you peek. See that? You see that? Look at that. Look at the back. Anyway, and so my thoughts are is that it takes certain senses of developed character in building a thick skin. And I'm certain there's kids that had to build a thicker skin at a younger age than I did, and maybe I'm projecting that because my brother, he's pretty harsh for a dad, and that I don't know. I think I won a type of a lottery with my parents, even though everything wasn't always a bucket of roses growing up. But at least it, I don't know. There's just something so different about media and data And it makes me wonder if generations of autism, like autism on the rise, is if in fact that is a fact, if it's a fact because the environment that is enveloping them requires a type of piercing or very narrow intellect that is so obscured, sociologically speaking, as to not form fit necessarily with social domains, but that is perfectly suited for whatever their organism's destiny has sought for them. Anyway, on another note, so this here fella in California, man, boy oh boy, he's been doing some art and some ink drawings and some collages and stuff. And just today I saw this one, or I saw two of them, but the one of two little ink portraits that he does, boy, they were outstanding. It was kind of nice, and so it was good because part of the reason I get online and ramble while I paint is in lieu of having a muse, right? But because oftentimes I want inspiration, and sometimes I feel like I need inspiration because I don't have motivation, not like I used to. Because part of the motivation was this belief that there was some sort of capital gain, like something huge that was just around the corner that was gonna kind of help one's life out, right? Like having this kind of blind faith in the cosmos, but realizing that you also have to work at shit, right? Can't just play happy little tree guy constantly, right? I have to be motivated to do it. But even the happy tree Bob Ross, amazing painter, who when I grew up I thought, wow, what kind of dumb shit is this? The guy just keeps painting trees and stuff, and I never that was not ever like enviable in my young mind. But I did see how my parents enjoyed it to some extent, and I don't know, maybe I kind of got into art because I was trying to appease them. I remember I found these old illustration books that my dad had, and that he had ordered when he was young, and as educational texts. And then he never became an illustrator, and so I thought, oh, I'll become an illustrator. And then after my a few years as an in-house illustrator, painting yearbook covers, which I have many of them, but I don't own the rights to them, so I don't disclose them. Was really amazing, and but it was I was always more into the crazy weird stuff, and I don't know. It's the weirdest thing is trying to reflect back on your life to see what your influences were and how the influences play into your current being. That's what I think is interesting. The influences of your past mixed with the influences of your present. And anyway, let's make this a non sequitur show, right? Let me skip to the topic of not having children once again, right? Like there was this argument about the selfishness. Like my sister-in-law at one point, she had already had two boys before my brother even met her, and she was of the philosophy that those who did not have kids were the most selfish type of humans. And I thought just the opposite. I was like, whatever, it's you guys that have the kids that are selfish. You have a kid to give to the kid, and so you don't believe that you're selfish, but the act is one of I don't know, like for some reason at the time I had viewed viewed parents as being selfish, because maybe it was more of a my early capitalism thoughts on things. Like, hey, everyone's equal and everything's the same, and or should be the same, um, and so the idea, like, we had neighbors that had 8 kids, and my parents would, like, they thought that was absurd. Like, what are they doing? That's like, you're going to be using food stamps, and not that I think they ever did, but um, anyway, what to say about that? Anyway, so it was just this idea of selfishness, right? And then I sat there thinking in my older days, like, why is it that I still have this imagined notion that if it's true and it can happen to you, that love will show up again as long as you remain open to it, or as Sinatra says, young at heart. And it makes me wonder, like the last time I even got a glimmer that love emotions were coming through, like I had to express it, but not without first kind of nipping the relationship in the bud. Like love was a functioning danger for me. Like, if you recognize you're falling in love with somebody that you absolutely are certain cannot fulfill, the goals of your soul, so to speak, then I thought, oh, it's time to get out of that before it builds. And it was kind of a good thing to do that also. Hello, Moto. Uno momento. What do we have here? Uh-oh. Baka. Okay, hang on, folks. Hey. Well, I'm live making a video while I'm painting this. Oh, yeah. What's new? And so that's probably good. Anyway, so I should call back. Maybe I shouldn't have you guys on listening, because what did I want to do anyway? I wanted to sing a song that I wrote, and I forgot the lyrics, and the girl that I was just saying that I had love for, we were singing it, and maybe that was it. Maybe because words in the universe are all aligned, and some of the lyrics were, I'm in love, or we're in love on a parallel planet. Maybe that kind of dissonant meaning echoed to her and to our being that on this planet we weren't in love, because we're only in love on a parallel planet. Therefore, we shouldn't be hanging out. Right? However to rationalize it. Yeah. Oh, so, and then I guess I should top off by just the sensation of feeling like you're the center of the world, and the idea that the world does in fact rotate around you. It's not that we're not in a geocentric or heliocentric solar system. But our consciousness is still behind our cranium's headspace somehow, meaning it seems as if the projection is there, and so the world seems to respond, meaning there's no way to not think of it that way. So if one overinflates, and I was spinking about this before Trump even was on the radar, but he's very narcissistic. The whole point is that I still believe a lot of truth about one's spirituality is coming to the realization that in fact you are the center of the universe. You are, or I am, the center of this universe. And it's not with like a rational or reasonable conviction, but meaning I don't argue it as like an empirical factoid. It's more like a phenomenological and semi, quasi empirical factoid that I'm the center of the universe, and therefore all of the energy that I can muster, like every single movement around me, it's accorded to my thoughts and my being, and almost like the sense of Atlas carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders, for one to take that on and actually say, yes, it is. The whole universe is on my shoulders. Now, what am I doing with it? Right? Almost like if the world goes up in flames or is some big shit house, then it's because I did something wrong, right? And I've already come to the grips of I'm doing something wrong. And so the level of sin isn't where one is merely a subject relative to either one's community or one's telos, or if you believe in a God, then to sinning in one's life is to not like exemplify and robustly make certain that the the universe and the world are saved and exalted, right? You take someone like Elon Musk, right? Like, hey, this guy's actually, not only did he, make, program PayPal and sell it off and make the bundle and then come up with the electric cars and try to solve these problems and try to get off planet and create this huge, like a world where one's empirical set, right, where our empirical set is actually includes people that are going to Mars, or the idea of a space army, or the idea of space frontiers is so huge, right? So just that idea is somebody that's like trying to fight the forces that are trying to make the world seemingly go to hell. And so the idea is be one of those people, be as close to, even if you don't believe it's possible. Or in other cases, you almost have to use a sense of aesthetics as sorcery. Like, oh, is this Marley painting? Is this echo of Marley painting going to help people like look into Marley music? And Marley is the human, and Marley is an idea, and find and extract the virtues that come along with him. And then because I didn't get a good, Catholic or theocratic education growing up, not really. I mean, it was kind of all obscured, but the idea of, we're a fallen organism, right? We're already pre-fallen. We're already dirty and imperfect, and we can never reach our ideals. We can only ever attempt and move towards a greatness and a nobility in our minds and in our approach at best, right? While we're dealing with all of the hedonistic, beastly, and other desirous things that might be out of reach or within reach but ignored. And it seems that coming to grips, like I had these Baptists show up to my door, this family, this couple with like 3 kids. And they were Bible thumping, preaching at just the right time, because the day before I'd cracked open the Bible and was reading it. It was odd that they showed up once again. This synchronic kind of like slightly broken synchronicity, like a projected synchronicity. Like even if there is a holographic principle that's governing something like a clairvoyance, or where machines know 6 seconds beforehand what you're going to choose if they're monitoring you, that because of this attribute of clairvoyance that some people are aware of, right? Like put down the books for a moment and just listen to your environment. Listen to what the bees and the trees and the words and everything is telling you outside of just the thrush of media inhaling, right? There's one thing to inhale data, and then there's one thing to interpret that inhaling as being specifically meant for the individual. And this brings people to this borderline of madness where I think either higher IQ people or people that are involved with different musical production in terms of actually manually producing music and understanding the play of notes, not just utilizing different softwares. These individuals tap into kind of that the difference between the word realm and the emotional realm with a tangent towards the aesthetic. And so the music always entices or parallels or accustoms itself to one's passions, or it may do so, right? And it's figuring out what those frequencies are, and then the code to the universe, right? The code to tapping into the supernatural and reading the tea leaves of your environment is to fold those sounds that are occurring in nature as if one's existence necessarily is in uniform harmony with its environment, such that the birds and the sounds of everything around oneself are not to be understood. They're to be translated into ephemeral instances of meaning. It's almost like a reversing of the passions of music. It at this point, at this stage, is an application of meaning that your mind drums up if when it hears a certain sound and or patterning. And a lot of people would believe this to be arbitrary, but being at the center of one's own universe, instead of assuming that meaning necessarily correlates with one's community in all senses, you just reel that back into yourself, right? You just reel that back in, and you assume that your life has already gathered enough instances of meaning that whatever comes to mind, you are stepping one step back from it, like witnessing your thoughts come about. So I'm not saying that bird chirps mean anything, like, why do birds appear when you're near? But it's not unlike that, right? So anyway, but the point that I'm driving at is that that's the beginning of reading the codic of those elements, the intelligent and or intelligible powers that be, that are like, if you believe in predestination or predeterminism or just determinism, then it would be you'll find an irony relative to your consciousness in any case, but this is like a double folding of irony, in that you're paying attention to the meaning of sounds and then the meaning of data sets as whatever your mind is capable of coming up with, and I think like certain sorceries, if you will, are like they're translatable devices, and then it's really an attunement, like tuning your guitar for like an appropriate sounding board, such that the universe echoes and grants over a type of understanding that only your being, if you're aware, can find translatable, right? To practice through somebody else's symbol set, I think is a good primer, but I don't necessarily think it's not the same thing as listening to to translating what it is that your thoughts are producing, right? And so it's like stepping into the phenomenological ground and avoiding the communal grounds of thinking. Anyway, so this is just an esoteric kind of description of how I've gone about interpreting things, and I am passionate about it because it's yielded in the past discovery. It's yielded discovery for me, and it doesn't matter whether or not anyone thinks that I'm mad in stating this or not. I couldn't deny it if I wanted to, because it's a lived experience, and it's what continues to make me feel like I am so off the rails relative to most other humans, that there's several humans that are awake. I'm awake to the universe, and they start loving and giving and feeling like everything's nice and grand, and they've become alert to their new world, that it becomes an ecstatic new reinterpretation of meaning and possibility. But then the next level is a deeper combinatorial patterning that is often disjuncted relative to people's necessity to keep their footing in the secular universe. So they don't have a lot of time to just go meditate and be off in the woods, so to speak. Man, here I am rambling. The one benefit of having actually live communication with people is that, I get to pause and listen to them while I'm sorting through my colors. With you guys, though, I have to remember to kind of do this. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, whatever I say, yeah. Just listen, everybody. Just listen. I'm telling you. Let me tell you something about something. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, that's right. We'll just put some cool little purples kind of outlining the highlights, the stage lights that must have been hitting Marley while he's singing. No woman, no cry. Yeah, that's right. Wearing his jean. My only upset, the only thing I'm upset here that I may have to correct is that normally Marley always is depicted with teeth, and I'm kind of giving him a flat, closed lip. Give him closed lips. You're gonna tap a little purple in there, though. That's right, a little kind purple. And then even after these ecstatic interpretations, this refolding of interpretation or interpretability, that I often just, I don't think people can get to. And when I reapproach even that, it has brought me into many, many dead ends as well as discovery. And so then at one point, it's like I have to reground, like a bird in flight has to land at some point, right? You can't just remain always looking for the lead bird and trying to follow its symbol, or maybe I should say the lead bat. Anyway, but all I know is today was depressive, and so this was the other thing now, just to mention to myself, if I am on my deathbed in my 90s going over these videos like, oh God, I'm really going to watch myself at this age talking about this shit. I'll be like, yeah, do it. It'd be like and then just saying that, I miss my own topic. I forget what I was going to say. Happy little purple. That's right. Happy purple. Let's get back to purple here. Oh, fuck. Okay, so this is the crisis, right? Like, sorry, I'm skipping topic again. It's total non sequitur. is that I've been using acrylics and using turpentine as my medium to lay down acrylic, right? Which is just, I'm off my rucka. Shouldn't be doing that necessarily. Anyway, so this guy's drawing, right? Doing these ink sketches. He had these like little floaty parts, right? And he watches my videos, either live or otherwise. But so he was, he paints a woman's head and then her hair and or some sort of like vibrational notes are not really like the shape of a note, right? Like, oh, music, he's singing music, I'll draw a musical sign. Like I've done that several times, but his were more just like vibrational wave patterns that both look like hair and or like a musical type of contextual environment, shape-oriented environment. And anyway, I thought his balance and everything was well put together. And it is so weird how, way back a few decades ago, art was also more experimental and maybe less about direct representationalism. And I noticed that in the modern day, a lot of young people, probably due to video games and the idea of solidifying one's ideas on paper, form very discrete outlines. They like discrete shapes often. They like clarity in the vision. And but way back in the day, I mean, there's just such an appreciation I have for abstract. And so it's always interesting to see how abstract art, in a way, like what its resurgence is going to look like. Because in the modern day, especially where the nation itself and the world in some regards is very, very dissonant and in crisis, almost in such a type of turmoil of separation of people's ethos and ideals and their thought patterns on things, that it's rife and ripe for new or a resurgence of madness in art. And I don't mean, like, there's a lot of modern surrealists that can paint like tight sort of madness, but they're still painting madness. And so it's always interesting to see people that just focus on abstracts. And then it's interesting to see what people do when they take abstracts. And I mean, my focus recently has been adding elements that are what do you call it? That come out of the abstract, but they in and of themselves they are I don't know, more tightly fit to a referent, like a human. Oh, there's a human there. It's not an abstract of a human; it's a human, right? Like you narrow the spectrum down to where it's almost impossible for people to not see what it is you're intending them to see. But what I like are abstracts where people are seeing things that the author themselves cannot see. But even amongst discrete and well-represented referential or even representational art are symbol sets, right? You can draw meaning based on not just what the items are by name, but about how they're correlated together, and hope that correlation takes on a profundity for the individual doing the interpretation of the piece. I mean, where the intent of the painter is to open an allowance of disparate symbol sets, even if it was as something as concrete or concretized as a still life, right? Like different fruit or whatnot. It's but in any case, I guess what I want to do is reel all this back to an idea of feeling like there's a subjective domain where I'm not in control of my universe, right? Where it always allows for a possibility of self-subjugation, or not just actual subjugation, but where your mind or your emotions are so patterned as to debilitate you, such that you're subjugated to not churn out new things. So I guess what I was saying about this piece is what I noticed is that when I am painting, I can get caught up in it, and I love being caught up in it. And I realize that I've kept myself, for other tangential reasons or because of emotional reasons or capital reasons for that matter, away from producing in mass daily, right? Like, it's so important, if to maintain one's code of being. Granted, when I go off on philosophical rails and weird trains, it's hard to cut out time to paint. But I mean, painting's always been my mode. It's always been the center of what, it was my chosen profession, gone, good and bad and haywire at times. But it's good to be back in the code. Right? Like I always feel it when I'm painting again. Like, a sense of home in the paint, a sense of home in the process. And that overshadows my lack of romantic relationship, my lack of family, that kind of, some bit of despair that people that are running lone wolf have. I don't know. It's so weird. When I do come out with my claws, I come out kind of very stingingly. And so I was just recently watching this video that surfaced on Facebook, and it was concerning racism, and it was spoken by a white woman who was speaking about racism. The notion of racism was not about the individual, but the idea that the bedrock of society is built on racism, right? It starts with that presupposition, and then it works its way through the idea of what white defensiveness is in retaliation to being called a racist based on whether or not you have malicious intent, whether or not you're trying to avoid sensing something by not bringing it to the surface, right? And it was a very leftist dialogic approach that was very sound. Like I found it very sound, but I had also, as opposed to like listening or getting inculcated with dogmas of the right, and by like very, very intelligent but self-protecting white individuals that form up a type of rightist strategy that's very discreet and concrete and based on certain classical basis of living, but a lot of it does shore up to the idea that, okay, the white power structure is itself it's always latent, is kind of what the argument starts with, right? So it removes the idea of the individual or individual intent or individual words as being the case, and it points to first accepting something as the case. And then they said, now, if you defend against this, often your defense is a weaponized defense. You're using your words and your argumentation in a weaponizing or a defensive posture, as if you're being attacked, as if you feel your vulnerability, right? And this is more specific to race than it is to gender differences. Should have texted this. Let me do this. Let me hit this reply button. Anyway, yeah, because I don't want to take on a call just yet. Let me do this, and then I'll do that, and wonder. So what's happening with you guys? What's happening with all four of you people? Right? Anything? You guys got anything to add to my ramble babble? Let's see. Hey, I'll call you back later. I'll call you back later. Boink. Boink, boink. Alrighty. Just anyway, so I've been my family structure has kept me at distance, even though I moved back to Salt Lake. A lion's share of me allowing myself to move back to Salt Lake was because I don't have kids, and my niece was born, and I wanted to have some general proximity as well as involvement in raising her. But my sister-in-law had different thoughts on what any extended family should have in terms of how they're relating to her daughter. And that put some huge hiccups between my brother and his wanting allowance, and then his wife, convincing him that keeping certain people at bay, in part or in whole, was huge. And so I, of course, being esoteric, was running against her secular sympathies so much that I actually did not have a huge role in interacting with her. And just today, because she had mentioned the nihilism, I decided to write back to her, or text back to her, and tell her about how life does have tremendous amount of meaning the longer you live, the more you can fold layers and layers of histories of meaning. And I mean, I guess it's always at one's fingertips to reduce it to nothing, to think all of everything is a joke, or just worthless or in vain. And life gets tough for people. It gets very tough for people that have lots of shit that goes wrong, and especially if a lot of shit that goes wrong is hitting them quickly, and they don't have good support, or other people who have what I would think are actually like very minor problems, but they're overblown, because in their world they're huge problems, but they seem like they're personal problems. They seem like they're more developed based on a lack of considerability, meaning how they're allowing themselves to consider their life, and or their life is under the financial or institutional or progress duress. And it's so weird that I don't know, my life has seemingly gone through physical hell and a series of type of hells. And I mean, it can in fact always get worse, and yet there's something about the whole Rocky Balboa, like, it's not whether you get knocked down, it's whether you get up again and you keep on fighting. And he has that lecture with his son in that Rocky V, and then his real son actually dies in real life, and death, the final frontier. Anyway, so I shouldn't ramble too long. I should probably just bag on this. I kind of wanted to get a basic something going on here with the painting. I wasn't really certain, like, so Marley in this, No Woman, No Cry live video, he's got a band behind him, right? And they're very colorful. I'm trying to keep them a little bit muted, and I don't have any reference. I didn't open the reference this time to kind of eyeball them because I want to be able to make some things up for them. And so that's why, use the force, let your mind, let your memory take off. It's like Crumb said, you don't want to be some, like, who wants to be a human Xerox machine, right? It just cracked me up. And it was his influence saying that had me go, yep, that's why I'm not out to paint representational, like direct representation. Not that I don't admire that. I do still heavily admire representational execution. It doesn't bend the soul, but maybe talking about nobility of being, it may have been a better route for me, meaning when I do paint generally, portraits or stuff that are not surreal in nature, but are more representational, I feel as if I'm executing a very in-depth sort of extraction of colors and balancings of colors, and I think I can execute fairly pleasing to the eye depictions that still look painterly, and so I'm happy when that happens. But it's always that woulda, coulda, shoulda, and hey, you're always at you're right now, you're at this moment in your life, right? And you're only bound by the constraints that you believe are actually there. Like legal constraints. Like, I guess I could go steal a car, being that I'm vehicle free now, but I'll probably not do that. But it is interesting to consider the constraints that people have in their lives, in their real lives, in their perception of their lives, and how they meander around it. I mean, like, we're given more information, data now, and more means that like a decade ago, maybe 15 years ago, the drive, before Khan Academy came out, right? I had this notion like, hey, I should try to take my math skills up as absolutely as high as possible. And I realized that I couldn't, or that I didn't, that once the Khan Academy was there and present, I didn't take advantage of it. I didn't take advantage of mastering what was at the time right in front of me. And so it is so weird now that there's a generation that has it all, and they're vain and empty, and I mean, not all of them, but it's weird who can utilize it and will utilize it, and by what means are they utilizing it, and then what are their values going to be like? Like, I'm very much into the idea of, like somebody said, hey, there's no reason for any millennial in the next 5 years to not be a millionaire based on what's possible right now online. There's zero reason. So, and I kind of agreed with that. Like, there's no reason. But then it made me wonder about just greed in general. But, oh, looks like there's typing. Shit, lots of typing. Piro, woo. Piro's get something. Woo, there's shit. Man, there's a book written in there. Yeah. Shit, I don't even have my. That's another damn thing. I almost have to wear reading glasses. Can you guys start typing larger print, please? Okay. Shit, let me see what you got. Can racism seem like speciesism in some aspects? I guess so. How about the distribution between racist bigotry and cultural bigotry? Can a race or culture ever be considered superior to another from a particular paradigm of framing? Certainly. But it also requires a certain belief and cohesion to that particular paradigm, and then an acceptance of the stats. And what is the criteria for superiority? Piro adds, okay, well, is it what is it that has one group function with a sense of its belonging at the high end of a hierarchy, and then working in collaboration for that maintenance, and then utilizing certain stats pointing to one's favor, pointing to one's history as a buttress to continue a favoring. But even the notion of the separation amongst, I was telling somebody, like, hey, what's allele frequency within the individual, within the population, the frequency of alleles, and which is the genotype in Ra, and we keep reducing it back down to phenotype before we're bringing in this political sort of paradigm flip toss of who deserves what. Based on this idea of race and cultural hierarchies and methodologies. It is interesting to see about where people are responsive. How about the distinction between? Oh, okay, that's the one we just read. Superior firepower. Oh, superior firepower. Superior foods. Okay, that's a superior infrastructure. Right. That the idea that some people will say, well, Islam will never provide itself a technological advancement because it owes everything phenomenologically directly to accepting the superiority of the gods. And then it's this idea that there were demons that came and taught certain humans how to build structures and build things, right, as kind of this mythic notion that then humans learned this demonic aspect of living that I guess you might say modern Islamists might eschew or walk around or not deem as necessarily necessary. They wouldn't inculcate their children with an education where that functioned as a virtue, and had more of a just ode yourself to God multiple times a day, accept your existence, and live, according to these base norms. But of course, that overshadows the whole history of the Arabic, the Islamic Arabic infusion of knowledge into the West in terms of numbers, in terms of architecture, in terms of design, in terms of its types of divinity. It's a weird for me to extol this notion that is what they are about, because one of the premises of Islam is that you are competent. You must be a competent, right? They're really emphasizing a certain sense of competency. So let's see. Factional, like the opposite of dysfunctional family. Yes, infrastructure and communal needs, as well as technological production, whatever the definition, if you can provide it. Some groups will have more of it than others. The issue is only the many possible definitions. For those of you just chiming in, I'm reading comments. Exactly, I do think some cultures are superior to live in. It was weird because when I went to Ukraine, they weren't short of technology, but it was very weird to see some of their architecture that was underbuilt. It was not to the highest spec. Like some of the buildings, after they reached like 18 floors, you'd see that they had a bend to them, almost like their engineers were not up to snuff. Were not, they weren't using the most sound means of building these buildings, and yet they were sound enough, but there was just something a little almost kooky, cartoonish about it. And I thought, really, this is their world, right? Everyone's out smoking. Like 90% of their population are heavy cigarette smokers, and so I thought, well, they're not dogmatically infused with our, propaganda against smoking and its relationship to health. And you have to admit, we don't have to admit, but an adherence to strict science allows kind of an oversight about, certain people's personal behaviors and decisions to overlook the scientific data in, for their own pleasure, their own desires on how they deem how it is they would like to live. And obviously, I mean, you two guys, you've been around the block, so you know this shit already. But compare with potential. There's a set. He drawings. If the girl with the cowboy hat is the type girl I want to collaborate with to play a role in The Dark Lady, I message her and I love it. I'm going to mail it to her. I thought that might be Rose, right? Who knows? But in any case, yeah, why not do flattering images of people? Don't, just because you send a girl your art, don't get caught up in the Van Gogh shit, right? Like thinking like, I'm obsessed with her, so I'm gonna paint her and I'll send her my love via my art, and assume that that's gonna come back. And then if it doesn't, then you get all frustrated and cut off your ear and send it to her or some shit like that, right? Like go for it, man. I say do it. Like, it's very flattering. I think a lot of people would find the effort, intuitively romantic at work, at the very least, right? And the execution of it had nothing creep oriented about it. But don't send her any yelling flowers along with it. True to the point, we said. And let's see. It's a good example of why I always debatable on some level, even though there are some pretty clear and widely shared criteria like wealth, lifespan, etc. Some Muslims believe that technology is all is will. I need to reboot the computer. Be right back. I'm going to connect from the other machine. Yes, I like the Romans were terrible mathematicians in comparison to the Parisians, and was reflected in their inferior architecture. What are you lining up? Some strange spook. Where are you going with it? We all prefer a different environment. As idea, if you are democratic, you want something optimized. All, not just for yourself. For all, not just. Roads, I think. Yeah, well, I've been throwing around like the Cardassians and the Borgians and the Ferengi and like these other Star Trek aliens other than Klingon, thinking like, oh yeah, Star Trek, that's kind of the liberal ideal utopia of, yeah, go off in a fashion and mix it up with this crew and, travel to these other planets and meet even more different types of species. And yet, I think the Sand People in Star Wars was probably Lucas's interpretation of Islamic people running around with, like, beady beady beady. I mean, not beat a buck, but like, I don't know. They're Sand People for one. They're wrapped up. They walk in single file to hide their numbers. No, those are Sand People, not the Jawa. I think the Jawa were based after that. But anyway, so it is weird to think of idealisms in TV shows and their impact on notions of what is best and what does it mean to bring everybody, the warring Klingon culture. How could they possibly get up to snuff and develop this tech if they're just primitive and always battling and that kind of shit, right? It's not particularly important. Interesting though. Good to have you guys in the stream. I'm gonna focus back here just for a moment. See what it is I'm actually doing. I think I'm gonna mix some orange with my green. Knock down some weirdo-isms over here. Give him his dreads some gooba. I gotta develop more contrast in this painting. I already know it. But, let's see if I can knock through something here. Gray flop something. And let's red clump that down there. We'll green, orange clump that, and we'll red clump here. But anyway, guys, I just wonder about a lot of people and a lot of, I don't know. I think the world's crazy, and so I am completing. I had this guy Eric. He got a hold of my side notes for my book on contradiction, and then I finally came to a semi-rough draft, and I sent it out to this college lady friend of mine that she's just interested in people who she knows work, so she's going to read it. And she's not cued in. Cast Iron Brave, she showed up in Nadia's chat room at different times. And anyway, so she's giving me some feedback, but I wouldn't mind. I mean, I'm almost done with it. I have some graphics. I'm still working on some graphics. But talking about being the center of one's universe, just the idea, like, trouble started to come my way, whence I started working on typing out a book on contradiction. So it once again was seemingly fulfilling my prophetic description that the universe is enveloping my being and my doings, and it's echoing it, such that as I develop contradictions, then I end up getting into wrecks. There's conflict that's arise. There's hard things, and I could say, oh, I'm just responding to the world, but it's also this idea like the world propagates what it needs when it needs it, sort of sense of like a predestined evolution of ideas sort of notion. And I'm definitely not, a material naturalist, as I was at the very beginning of my career here. Of course, at the time, I wouldn't even have been able to name that term. So it is interesting to have these times with all you guys as co-educators for my soul. The soul. Oh, what else do you got here? Flesh tones are a highlight. Mecha Center. The dominant color is blue. Yes, indeed it is. We can apply the concept to Spook's painting. Yes. Well, and this, I went, because his outfit is blue, and I remember seeing something that was like more of a purple toned blue come through in the background. So I was like starting to paint that over here. But then I kind of stumped myself because I realized I was mixing turpentine or substitute turpentine as my medium for acrylic paint. I guess I'll do it again because in a way this does definitely need some purple in it. Some more purple in it. Keys. So yeah, some guy, he said he saw my Prince painting, and he's like, "Oh man, can you paint a Marley like that kind of?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I think so." And even though I think in one way I need to make the Marley's hand even bigger here than I have it, because it needs even greater distortion. Damn. Let's see. Let's knock some of that up backwards. But yeah, it is cool to play with purples next to blues and offset purple blue next to like light, more turquoise colors sometimes. But, anyway, God, how to echo sentiment in the machine of the universe. You know, all of my disgruntledness, but that's how I was going on the beginning of this or this hangout, is that I'm upset in a way to the extent that I feel so disengaged with the regular format in which people arrive at their conclusions about things. Like, I just feel like my thinking process is not, like, I've made the formalization of my thinking process itself a type of individual practice. And this is, still basically being a monolinguist, or, having a single mother tongue. I guess everyone has generally a single mother tongue, but just not being well versed in other languages. There's limitations in grammar, but it almost feels as if I've used that limitation as reason, in a way, not to invent my own language, but to invent the way in which I'm projecting a form of grammar onto my own mother tongue, as if I'm retranslating my own historic mother tongue, which when I first went mad, there was a loss of, internal monologue and a loss of language, such that kind of rebuilding it, I guess, put me into trying to maybe reroute or simplify in my mind types of grammatical form, or, typing with different diacritical marks and suggesting that, it maybe, it's, I mean, Joyce, I guess, was more onomatopoeic, but, tapped into the possibility of it. And he, he exercised it. So I have to give, I can't say that other people aren't, playing with language to greater extents, but it's just weird, because maybe for Joyce, it was just, easy come, and then he could re-solidify his alignment with regular grammar, his formality, his formalism to the grammar, didn't get lost. And I feel like perhaps I've lost a certain formal, like, even if I wanted, like, I made this very lengthy comment on this woman's Facebook page about race and practice and social justice and so forth. And I had to edit it a couple of times, because I realized upon the reread that nobody is going to be able to digest all of this without, like, they're not going to be able to interpret it right. They're not going to be able to pick up what it is I'm meaning unless I go at it again and I reformalize it. It's not that the writing itself didn't have meaning. It definitely had meaning. But I could see where, it could easily be read off the rails once again. And so I had to go back in and reapproach my formalism, and in a way, or, re-intersect regular traditional forms of English or usage. In a way, though, I'm glad I go at it that way, because it leaves this open-ended, like it allows me to reduce what it is I'm talking about when I go at it and I edit it, and I try to bring it back to more acceptable common grammatical process, I guess. I mean, a lot of it comes down to, the whole idea of, quick, rattle off the numbers between 1 and 9, right? And then like regularly people will just, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and other people might go, like spout it off like they're reading the firing of an engine, 7, 8, 2, 5, 4, 3, and etc. And so it's that idea of what rule system is one using, and then what does it mean to have an ulterior rule system that is itself mutable and not necessarily formalized. And so you express your concepts that way, and then you boil it back down. Let's see what you guys are typing. I do not take many of the proper steps to planting trees. I like environment to look wild and fight naturally. That I have my way to reach. Sure, some people are perfectionists, while I prefer to experiment. Beat a buck. Oh, yeah. Okay. So anyway, back to the joint. Gotta have him hanging the blunt out, even though, he never did have a blunt during this concert, but that's part of the fun here. I guess this isn't a blunt, just a joint, just a regular fatty, man. Give old Marley a fatty. It seemed as if, the way in which my environment is, like, it's kind of haunting in its jumbledness, right? It's kind of haunting, and it's the way I'm living in my space. There's a certain requirement for a certain amount of space that's needed, and I'm not utilizing my environment as much, even though my other roommate moved out. I have a little more expansion room. I think now more than ever, it might be time to get somebody else in there, especially prior to this court case, which, to be quite frank, might yield a 10-day stint for me. And so I'm not too happy about that. Not that 10 days is murder or anything, but boy, man, when you get wrapped up with people in there, even though they separate people by racial phenotype generally in populations, you're not necessarily messing around with guys. Like, a lot of guys are trying to, play the dominant primate game, and they want to make certain they're taking control of their little jail cell, but who knows? Kind of hoping that, I don't know. I talked to a defender, so I'm hoping it gets pleaded properly. But I'm also realized that our legal system has been perverted into a prosecution dominant legal system. So it's not fair. It's prosecutor can get convictions when they want, because the individuals are always multiple charged. They're rarely charged with just one thing. Everybody's charged with at least two things, so the prosecutor can always bargain for a plea deal. And then this comes about because you cannot push too many people through the legal system. The legal system can no longer support jury trials for everybody, so it streamlines itself by allowing prosecution advantage. And but there, if I knew the law really well, which of course I don't, but if I did, there's got to be some sort of legal defense just based on on that type of thing, right? Like the idea of we have the right to a speedy trial, right? Well, what a speedy trial means, at least in the state of Utah, is up to 120 days or maybe 140 days before your trial. And that, if they can pull it off within that period of time, then that's considered speedy. And I don't know. It's a goddamn pity, is what it is. I'm telling you, it's a goddamn pity. When they brought you in here, you was crying like a pussy. Yeah. Trading places. When they brought you in here, you was crying like a pussy. Yeah. That's because they put tear gas in my eye. That's the shit they use on crowds. Anyway, last time I was in jail, I was comforted when I was, like 6 guys were in. I was on a bottom bed. Some of them knew each other from the last time they were in. One of them was a little pissy at me, and it had me, like, okay, I got to watch myself. It's not easy to sleep here, but I got in that bottom bunk and I looked up and the number 51 was there. And that to me meant that this was all just a digital data set, that these were aliens, and that I was in Area 51, and that the whole world is in fact a matrix, like in the movie The Signal, and that we're given this data set and we're constantly flowing with it, but the other entities are merely that. And then grounding myself back to the pragmatic approach and pragmatic interpretation of the world became an easier landing back into the regular dimension of things. That's what I meant before by there's people that have this openness and they see everything is brand new and fresh and granted to them, and they're elated in type of a born again thing. And a lot of times those people, and that's when I fell prey to the idea of a flat earth also, right? Like your mind is open to the notion, or even creationism, that everything is merely and only an electrical data set, that we're part of a holographic environment necessarily, right? With a conviction that is necessarily the case. And that's a hard paradigm to hold for too long. I mean, I actually didn't, I was open to the flat earth, but then there was about 72 hours that my paradigm actually flipped to I live on a flat earth, right? Like believing that this is a flat plane and just imagining it as such. And then part of the same mental thing that I had to do in order to leap off a roof and deny gravity at one time required I had to dismember the most rudimentary aspects of my belief within a matter of several minutes. And of course that particular interpretation of the world didn't favor me at all, but I honestly believe that, in terms of cause and effect, that particular moment, as obscene and absurd as it was a catalyst to future possession or being granted information on high from I don't know, call it the Holy Ghost, right? Like some of these this Mormon surgeon, like their new president, I guess he was a surgeon, and he was talking about, at one point I got the ghost. I didn't know how I knew how to operate. I just knew how to do this, and I did it, and it worked. And it was this idea, like, because I used to be in that frame where, like, hey, I'm not here causing this paint to go down. I don't really have to work at it. It's just, you just kind of let your body do it. It's body talk, right? And it's part of going with a particular flow. And So finding out what one is good at is aligned with the idea of, hey, you fall into a domain of practice or an environment that allows your body to exercise and complete whatever the tasks are in front of it most naturally. And that's what it means by, finding an appropriate career or your calling or something like that. Like, that's how I reinterpreted what that information must mean. So I want you guys to only comment on shit that I'm talking about. Where you go, you are there. Rizzle, drizzle, thinks from my future. I'm not going to distill him. I'm reading backwards. Of course, to the end product may not be the aesthetically pleasing. Yes, we can have room for details, potentials to occur. Yes, but you should rake the ground a little, let it breathe. You're making an analogy. Changing the culture here. Fall is good time for me. In fact, I'm going to drop the rest of the seed, another bag, just various places without breaking the earth, and see where it takes. Hi. All right. Well, guys, shit, I'm almost going on 2 hours. Part of the reason I don't get a day job, because sometimes I feel like what would help me most is to socialize within a business format again. And of course that could be a huge burden, because then my value system will have to follow the deontological policies of the business culture. You can't say this, do this, act this, and try to reduce my freedoms of being. So it feels like I'd be choking off huge swaths of my time just for the labor. But beyond that, I only have so much body sitting time in me, and if it goes to length, like I'd sit out in a park and I'd sell art, and some days I could do it sober, but for the most part I had to get a beer in me, or I had to smoke just for pain relief, right? Because I didn't want to get back on any pharmaceutical painkillers. That shit took me forever to get off of, even though smoking tobacco and getting rid of tobacco smoking was the hardest thing I ever booted. But anyway, and why am I telling you that? Why am I telling you that? Let me tell you why I'm telling you that. I'm telling you that because, because that's one of my excuses. Is if I can't lay back or put my feet up after a bit of time, and I'm not allowed to intoxicate on the job, then I have no business getting into a job like that. But that being said, it would still be easier doing that than it would be doing any labor on my feet. I think I'm definitely missing something. I'm missing a lot in this painting. There's got to be greater contrast still. No woman, no cry. No woman, no cry. When we ate porridge on the balcony in Trenchtown, and it was very good. Oh, yeah. And back in the day, and we remember, and blah, blah, blah. And don't worry, don't cry, woman. Yes, no, don't do it. No. Beat a buck. Yep. Battlestar Galactica, Star Wars, Star Trek, and Buck Rogers, Flash Gordon, and all the other goodies. Back in the day, we got extensive Guardians of the Galaxy, space stuff, and I do think as we're moving, like if the universe does in fact have an echo, right, then the idea of first contact with other aliens, even though I say it's already happened because I've experienced something not dissimilar to that, we could say that the advent of the internet, being like a large type of brain that is echoing electronic energy waves out into the cosmos, attracted super intelligent, hyperdimensional individuals, and that the reason politicians and everybody go to New York, or presidents have to go to the Wailing Wall and then go touch a sphere in the Saudi Arabia, is because they're trying to tap into the most recent advances with all these alien subjects, but they can never quite disclose what's going on. If you look at Bill Clinton disclosure, Obama disclosure, other disclosures about what's actually happening, they cannot quite tell you exactly what's going on relative to the powers that be. Not saying that all of them are privy to it, but I assume that there's bigger, greater happenings that are going on all over the planet. And anyway, I recommend, guys, and I recommend people that you figure out your internal superpowers, your X-Men powers, and you emphasize those, but you don't lose track of your day-to-day until it is time to lose track of your day-to-day, where you must become an X-Men and war or produce something in some sort of power-driven fantasy for, if the Islamic God or the Akashic Record are correct, then the echo off of the Akashic Records are that your superpower and or your everything that is produced in man's thought has an echo in some other grander dimension that has some reverberation. Damn, I'm sitting here tapping this awesome design on my palette. But okay, so that being said, for whatever you want to think about it as, I think I am going to have to close this down, because who wants to sit through a 2-hour movie, right, guys? A 2-hour Mike Ramblage. And see, I could be a bartender, but that's a lot of feet action, right? I was considering a barista, even part-time. I thought I could do it. And I only have so much feet time because my feet are mangled, like fucking mangled, right? So, if you friend up with me on Facebook and go through all my photos, you'll see one photo of my mangled post-op foot that's just wrecked. And the reason I mention that is because this local friend of mine said, "Oh God, Mike, when I saw that, I was just like, please take that down, Mike, please take that down. That is just so hard to see. It's like watching people post, cow slaughter videos, and he's just like, wow, that's just, Anyway, I'm saying that because it's still 8 minutes to the end of the video. What else should I talk about? What is a good, profound, absolute way where later on, if I'm looking at this at the end of a video, I'll be so happy that I ended it with a type of profundity that nobody could get anywhere else on the net other than the DawSpook channel. That's right, the here and now, and the now and here. Sledgehammer. If you just lay down your tracks. So a lot of people on their deathbed, they regret not doing what they wanted to do. And I think that part of self-expansive thinking and practices is allowing oneself to dive into areas that they don't know whether they'd be good at. That's why I was running for president at one time. Like, hey, could I be a good politician? And I thought I would have been perfect to run against Trump on the stage back then. Of course, I did no traction, son of a bitch. And then I thought I could go be an actor. And then I thought, no, go be a comedian. And then I thought, no, go be a musician. Right? Like, finally do something, right? Like, all these things are just bubbling up in me. And I'm like, well, I can't really be an actor per se because I'm probably not good at remembering lines, but I don't know. I do have this movie that is coming up that I'm supposed to be in with one scene, and they're sure taking their sweet ass time getting that scene ready to film, but it's happening. A huge armadillo, by the way. Friend of mine, the same one that told me to keep my feet off of social media, he said he's been building this huge 20-foot long armadillo made out of wood and plastic and leather, and it's really pretty amazing. This guy just has a mechanical mind where he's able to solve all sorts of production problems, and he's a tad envious. And he got a hold of me when he saw some of my work, my princess work, because he used to paint paintings for Wizards of the Coast on their cards, and he has since stopped painting, and he just works on kind of fun weird projects. He's like, in his thought, he's always working every day, and he doesn't have a lot of time for a lot of shit, and his philosophy is like, hey, I'm going to die, and I have so many things I want to do that even if I'm working on it every day, I'm not going to finish it, and I need to just bust my ass and, get as many of these done that I want to get done, because I'll just, he'll quite frankly be more satisfied if he does, and he knows if he doesn't do it, he won't be satisfied, and I'm busy giving myself a chill pill, kicking around, being meditative, being lazy, being slothful, and so it's not in all cases am I that, but a lot of times I've been like that, and so that's one of my crosses to bear, is that, wow, I only have so many days on the planet, and I'm fucking around, even if it's just a parallel planet. Let me show you how. Until my crew comes back from the future and rescues me from this planet, I am burdened to live here amongst you humans and create the life that seems worthwhile to live while it is that I am present. I am so glad that you have come along with me, gentlemen, on my little tour de Rambly-Bambly Force. And with that being said, I shall continue to paint for roughly 3 more minutes, because I want to put the joint smoke going up in fun, very fun ways. You know what I mean? Like fun ways. Yes, not unfun ways, fun ways. Thank you. Oh, and by the way, Pyrrha, we were going to do this live at some point, and I swear to God, man, I do not know how to run a Hangout anymore, or my system rejected me from doing it, and I'm like, that's why I'm like, God, we got to coordinate something outside of YouTube so that we can pull, group talk, group think, group criticism, or whatever we were planning on last time together. And anyway, but I am planning on, I'm also, if I don't get another roommate and I don't leave the state and I keep my place and blah, 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 I'll have room in my back room to set up a micro studio where I intend to do interviews with creatives and do mocking processes of like TED Talks. And yeah, but that's an altogether different thing. Okie dokie. Only a minute and a half, folks, for my 2-hour daily movie. Thanks for attending once again. And thanks for understanding that I know that you know that I know that I'm the center of the world, and that you guys are part of my Truman Show. And I'm really glad that you showed up today. And of course, I don't take that actually seriously, but for the sakes of saking things, I might as well just say it anyway, right? Because why not, right? You know what I mean? You guys know what I mean? You know what I mean? Right on. Well, okay, that being said, here we go. We're wrapping it up. Last words, rock on. Thank you. Have a good one. Yeah, should get on that again. Yep. Okay. All right. Okay, here we go. Cheers. Here's to the wild, wild west of. Here, let me give you guys a close up. A little more of a close up of what I'm doing here with Marley, right? The backup van, got it with the piano in. Oh, yeah, come on, buddy. He's looking mighty Caucasian in there. Got to work on that. All right. Cheers. Yo.